I'm just gonna wait for some people to. Just waiting for people to join. If anyone sees this or wants help with a proposal, just leave it in the comments. I wanted to start thinking about this kind of stuff soon. All right. So, I mean, I had some free time this afternoon, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I think about writing proposals. And most of the proposals that I write are informed from a book called Consulting Bible. So let me just find that real quick. By Alan Weiss. Yeah, so let me share my screen. This book right here. This is the one I read. I basically did it, and it works really, really well. And the specific thing they talk about, dismiss. I don't want to dox myself. And that book basically talks about the importance of generating a proposal that is really high quality. And it's high quality because it has a lot of different sections. There's a situational assessment, there's a measure of the objectives, the metrics of success, and the values and benefits you're going to derive from that project. Then you list out the methodologies, how you plan to do it. Then you list out timing, and then you list out price. And so there's a lot of stuff going on. So if I go to situational assessments, Alan Weiss. Let me think of situational assessment, Alan Weiss. PDF samples. This is basically everything, right? Situational appraisal, objectives, values, metrics, timing, accountability, credentials, terms, conditions, and acceptance. And the real benefit of something like this is it really helped you be able to communicate your understanding of what the customer actually wants, right? And it's never like a list of tasks. It's always some kind of outcome. And what you can do is you can always first specify that in the situational summary. And then you can list out the objectives and the things that the company wants. Then you list out, in this example, they also list out the methodologies, right? So this is what the company wants, and this is what you're going to do, right? And you wanted to like separate these two things, because if you just sell the list of actions, like that's when you start selling time. But if you sell the objectives first and then explain what you're going to do, now the actions you take are in service of the objectives that the company cares about. Then it's a matter of measuring the metrics for success, right? You can have about the outcomes and the value to the customer. And then you can think about things like timing and accountabilities and conditions. And this is basically what I do for almost all of my proposals, right? Here there's like a in the methodology, one thing that is also really valuable is to make sure you have multiple options, right? Because if you only have one option, they can only pay you a certain amount of money. But if you're actually able to offer more value, you can do that by providing options. Because now they don't have to just say no to your entire proposal. They can say no to the things that feel expensive or the things that don't feel like fair or valuable, but they can still choose some of the options that do make sense for them, right? So here, there's option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4. And right now, there's like no price listed, right? Because what you really want to do is you want to paint a picture of, again, what they're trying to get out of the system. Then afterwards, you can start asking for things. And then at the bottom, this is where you think about, how much do these things actually cost? And really, your ability to command a higher salary is again, based on what I said yesterday, is mostly going to be based off of the fact that you are trying to be as accountable and as responsible as for the outcome as possible. For example, if you go back to this, if you ask really bad questions, let me just check the conversation, by the way. Yeah. If you ask really bad questions during your sales process, then you're going to have a really bad proposal. And the more you care about writing a good proposal, the more specific the questions are going to be, right? When companies come to me, I usually ask, what's at stake in your business and why are you reaching out to me, right? What happened? And that question tells you a lot, right? Sometimes it's the CTO has left the company. Sometimes it's, oh, we just raised a Series A. We're trying to figure out what to do. Or it's, we're about to raise a Series A. We want to prepare for that. And all of a sudden, like, this size becomes a lot bigger, right? Because if they're just someone who's, oh, I'm just curious, nothing's at stake, then how can you ask for anything, right? They're not going to make any money. How do you ask? But if they just said, okay, well, I raised $40 million and my job is to hire 10 more people in the next year, you already know like how big the problem is. And not only that, like if you think about a recruiter, 10 employees might be $3 million. And the recruiter gets 20% of that. That's a lot of fucking money, right? But what the recruiter does is it says, okay, the situation is going to be that this company has raised a bunch of money and they need to scale out their team. So it's very important for them to hire credible people with lots of experience. The goal is to hire 10 people in the next 8 months to be able to do this job. And if they're doing it successfully, they're going to go on and build a great product, get their Series B, go public, everyone's a millionaire. If you can frame it from that perspective, then you can offer, different guarantees and options. For example, the recruiter can say, well, I understand that a success means that you're going to actually end up hiring them. And success also means that they're not going to leave. And so they can think about, okay, maybe the offer I want to pull out that is maximally accountable is one where I ask for 20% of the salary they allocate. And, I'll give you the money back if someone leaves, right? 20% of $3 million in the next year is a lot of money. But if they're not accountable, maybe they're just charging you based on a list of actions. We will reach out to 30 people. Like, who gives a fuck, right? I will do 50 phone calls. If they said we'll do 30 phone screens, and each phone screen costs $60, you don't really know whether or not they're just going to do more phone screens because they want to make more money, or maybe the recruiter is super successful and you don't matter to them, and so maybe they're not doing phone screens because they're not excited by the outcomes. Right now, you're asking yourself all this other shit. But if the recruiter says, "I want 20%. This is what success means. This is what I know. This is what you want," it becomes way more clear. And so, in their options, they might be able to present options that are lower touch, right? Screens, I'm going to send you qualified leads. Everyone that passes the phone screen, I want $100. And the higher end, I'll find the executive, I'll build the team. Right? And so the situation is to, spend $3 million in the next year on headcount to build up towards a profitable business. The size is very big. Another question I ask is just like, what does success look like? Right. And not only that, but like, how can I make you look good? Then you can start thinking about the values and the metrics for what success looks like. Right. Because again, in the interviewing process, metrics is not number of resumes. It's probably closer to number of job interviews or the number of qualified leads. Right. But again, it's just really good to sort of highlight again that you know what the actual outcomes are. And so now you know what the objectives are. The goal is to, hire a team of 5 or 6 people in order to raise their Series B. The value is, being able to find the talent quickly is going to allow us to develop the product faster, is going to, improve our go to market, maybe in a very competitive space, getting even a couple months ahead in our go to market actually has compounding effects. But the metrics now become, whether or not we are able to give the offers out, whether or not they accept the offer, and whether or not they stay at the company long enough, right? Timing might be, wanting to find the client in the next 3 months or 6 months, etc. And then the accountabilities become, well, I'm going to give you updates, or I'm going to give you a lot of updates, or I'm going to give you infrequent updates with a lot of information, right? To understand more about the accountability is a good question to ask them is, okay, what do you look for in a partner, right? And maybe what they realize is like, oh, this person's like a micromanager. They want to have an approval for every decision that we make. Or maybe they're so busy with other things, they just want to be sent, a end of week overview of who to interview, right? Maybe they want to be interrupted if there's a great candidate. I want you to be able to, text me right away and say, this guy is great, like jump on the call. Or maybe I want to say, okay, I never want you to do that. I'm super busy. Again, if you ask the question, like, what do you look for in a partner? You can change the accountability section in a way that is beneficial to you. And not only that, if you understand what they look for in a business partner, you can also change the different options and methodologies that you can sell, right? Like I said before, like if they want very little contact or a lot of contact, you can just make that optional things, right? And then you can sort of separate out and package things and bundle things in a way that makes sense. Let me find an example of one that I really like. Yeah, this is basically the one that I structured my proposal against. Right? What is the situation? Objectives, measures of success, and value to X. Right? The value of this project appears to be multifold: improved supervision, faster appropriate responses, retention of key talent. Right? You can talk about status, you can talk about the money you save, you can talk about the money you make, right? Tons of different things. And then you can effectively create the methodology. And notice here, one thing that's really important to make the distinction between trading your time for money versus pricing yourself against outcomes is the outcome is worth something. You're investing a small proportion of that outcome to make it more successful. And to get this outcome, it's going to take 6 months, right? What they didn't say is, I'm going to charge you $8,000 a month. That's again an hourly thing, right? So here it says like, I never assess an hourly or daily fee, since you should not make an investment decision every time my assistance may be needed, nor should your people have to seek permission to spend money if they need my help. Instead, you say, you're going to spend a shit ton of money, and 45K is just a bit of what you're going to invest to make them more successful. And here are the 3 options. And this is basically, if you look at my website, it kind of just looks like this, right? There's medium, there's low touch, medium touch, high touch. And the pricing affects that, right? Like this is an incremental change. This is a much larger change. And then one thing I find really helpful, honestly, is this line here. A lot of companies that are bigger, like not startups, but like bigger companies, they'll think about offering you like net 60 or net 30. But because you've structured your deal like this, you can't really say, oh, $8,000 every month for 5 months. And then within 3 months, if you cancel, like you lose out the money or whatever. Instead, you can say, 50% upfront, 50% due on acceptance. And then at 15%, like, so I offer a 15% discount when the fee is paid upfront. And people do it, right? Because, for example, if a client knows they want to work with me, like, they know the money is going to leave. And unless they're short on cash, and most companies that are like VC backed or like large hedge funds or whatever, they are funded. And so to them, it should just look like just free money. Right? They're already committed. You're making it easier. And now with the extra money, you can like invest it, make some other bets. And it's actually pretty easy to negotiate these terms because chances are these companies just have these default contracts, right? It's not like the PM or the founder is trying to screw you by adding net 60. It's just the default contract. But these are contracts for independent contractors, right? These are people that are doing work, right? But again, I think having these multiple options and having these terms is super successful. Okay. So what you're going to probably end up doing is you're going to end up writing a bunch of these proposals over time, and you're going to start just wishing to ask certain questions. Like, again, the questions are going to be like, what's at stake? What does success look like? How can I make you really look good? And what kind of qualities do you look for in a partner? All these qualities, like what kind of timing do you want? What is the expected return on the investment you're going to make? And how much of that are you willing to put towards making this more successful, making this a little bit easier, having this happen a little bit faster? All these questions are going to inform how you can write your proposal. And then what I do specifically is I will always, do these calls and save the meeting transcripts. And then what I have is I have this entire PDF plus a bunch of instructions plus like 7 other proposals that were accepted. I put that into a Claude project, and I just now have a Claude project that takes in transcripts and generates the first draft of the proposal. And again, the conversations you have are effectively getting the information you need to extracting the information you need to generate a proposal, right? And the idea is like, as you increase the options, you increase the price because you are increasing the likelihood, the accountability and the responsibility for these outcomes. Right? It's never going to be like, I will do X and Y. If I try to make a simpler analogy with something like, a trainer, like a bad trainer might be, like a bad trainer basically comes to you and says, hey, I'm a trainer. I work out of this gym, and this gym has like 10 squat racks, right? But if someone says like, oh, hey, like, why are you looking for a personal trainer? Oh, you're trying to lose some weight? Is there any occasion, or do you just are you feeling unhealthy, or is this like injury prevention? Oh, you're going on a honeymoon? When's the honeymoon? Oh, in 8 weeks. Okay. Now you know so many things. You know the timing, the outcomes, right? Oh, where are you going? Like, oh, like Lake Como? Like, wow, your wedding must be like $200,000, right? In which case, there's different things you can do, right? Because if you saw a list of actions, maybe the answer is, hey, like, I don't know. Let's think about it. Yeah, I will work out with you 40 minutes every other day, and each workout is $250 an hour, and there's a late fee, right? Like, you're only going to make so much money because that's going to be a function of like the clients you have times the dollar rate times like how many days you're in the gym. But if you start pricing things like, okay, you know what, like, if this is like your honeymoon or something, maybe I mean, like, I don't really know how the personal trainer example because I'm not going to make any more money. This is like purely an emotional decision. But I guess my point here really would be to, structure a deal in a way that says, hey, like, if your goal is to feel great and be confident and like, enjoy your like a hot summer body, and you want this done in 6 weeks, here's a plan to do it in 6 weeks. Right? Here are some milestones that we care about. And I feel like you don't have to pay me anything, but my goal is to get you these milestones. Right? And maybe you start thinking about like performance bonuses. Maybe it is if you're able to lose 10 pounds, you can do this. And if you want to lose 10 pounds, you can do that, right? You maybe don't pay me until there's some outcome that's been accepted. And if you really believe in my ability to deliver this, like here's a discount if you want to like pay up front. Again, like I don't really do personal training, but I think those are the analogies I try to think about, right? It's like, obviously it might not be good to start selling to people who want to like go to the honeymoon because there's really nothing but emotional investment. But, you can imagine for a personal trainer for a movie, it's very different, right? Because the movie's budget is like $100 million and your lead needs to get jacked in the next 6 weeks. And the question is like, what happens if they're not jacked, right? Do you delay production? Do you set the movie back 6 weeks? What if they lose a bunch of weight, but in a really poor way and they're really tired? Like, how much is that going to cost you? But then you realize that if you do that, chances are you're not paying them like $200 an hour, right? Because they're going to give you a ton of different options to hit your goal. Now it's like, well, sure, my time is worth this much, but I'm actually going to get you to a workout plan. I'll take you to and from the gym. I will bring you a chef. I will, have a private gym so you don't get paparazzi coming at you. I'll bring you to cryo. We'll set up some time for sauna. I'll make sure that the caterer has options. And you can add all these other features because you understand what outcome they're trying to drive, rather than just going like, well, I'm a personal trainer, my rate is $250. Because that's not actually aligned with the outcomes. But if it becomes, my job is to get you on set, feeling strong, looking good. Now I'll make sure I can plan things around the scenes that you do. I'll get you nutritionalists. I'll get you cryo. Now all these other things are things that you can charge for because they're actually valuable to the customer, right? And if you can give them these options. And now it's just a matter of like whether or not the business wants to invest this much money. And I don't know if like personal training is like 0.5% of the production, but like 0.5% is a fuck ton of money for like a movie budget. Anyways, that's kind of all I really had to say about it. I don't know if anyone has questions, but yeah, like a lot of it, like in the consulting that I've done in the past, it's, like you have a RAG app and the quality is bad and it's hurting user trust. And like, how much is user trust worth? Like, I'm not going to solve it for $100 an hour, right? Because I don't really come and say, I build apps for people. If you say I build apps for rich people, like that's not good enough either, right? Like really what you want is like, I fix things for people who stand to make lots of money, right? Like, or I automate things for people who are paying lots of money to do this manually. Then you can just figure out like, okay, what kind of customers do I have? What kind of services do I offer? That the customers I want are customers that have users with big problems, and the services I offer have to be aligned with driving those business outcomes, rather than saying I am a Python developer, right? But a year ago, like I was a Python developer. I was charging like $170 an hour. I nervously got myself to $250 an hour. But then at some point, it's like, no. Like, I'm here to get you to Series A. Your Series A is probably going to be $20 million. Like, what are you looking to invest in this project? Oh, what can I do to get you there? Okay, what can I do? Okay, I can build you a roadmap that can both impress your investors, be realistic, and help use that roadmap to close the talent, right? Because a lot of AI engineers don't want to come in and feel like they're supposed to be doing magic. And it's really hard to find a head of AI, but I have this presence on Twitter, or like I'll be on podcasts and I can do a lot to market your goals, right? But I'm not going to like charge you $250 an hour. And if I mention your job listing, at a podcast, like that doesn't like what's the dollar amount to that? Doesn't make any sense. But if I could say like I'm gonna do all these things, and here's some other things I can do, and here's some other things I can do, now you're building out offerings that make you feel like the likelihood of your dream is just increasing over time. That's how I think about it. Anyways, that's my rant. I'm gonna use this transcript to turn it into a blog post. So thanks for listening. I don't know how many people are actually watching this thing, but if anyone has questions, just like tweet at me. All right.